Case file number 3615, written by Protection Hour 4105. How to sketch the future. I'm an illustrator by trade, so for me, sitting down to doodle at 2 a.m. is typical. A few years ago, I was having one of those late-night sessions with me and my pens, working on this specific and, if I can toot my own horn a bit, very detailed illustration of a garden. It was a really peaceful scene. When I finished, I flipped it over and wrote, "A place for me, for you," on the back. It felt right at the time, perfect. I tucked it away in a folder with 100 other sketches and didn't think about it again for ages. Fast forward to 2020. During the lockdown, I ended up staying with my aunt at her place. She had actually built this incredible little cabin in her garden as a project during the pandemic, so I had never seen it before. One afternoon, I was taking some photos of the cabin to send to my brother. As I'm looking through the lens, this weirdly focused memory of that old drawing hits me like a bowling ball, knocking down all of my pins. I didn't have a photo of the sketch on my phone, and I was stuck at her place for another 2 months. I can't even explain the level of frustration I felt, because I was so obsessed with verifying this that I actually considered making the 8-hour drive home just to open that folder and look at the paper. Yeah, that's how deep the need was. My brain knew something was off. When I finally got home 2 months later, I ran to my studio and dug out the drawing. You guys, I have the chills just typing this. It was a literal copy of the photo I had taken of my aunt's new cabin. The layout was identical. It even had the exact same reeds growing in the pond, and the part that really messed me up beyond any words I can type, a metalwork sculpture she has in her garden. A sculpture she didn't own, and a cabin that didn't exist when I sat down at 2 a.m. years prior to draw it. So this is another kind of premonition or gathering of knowledge that might be happening kind of in real time. Reminds me of the prophecy regarding the Columbia disaster in the last video. You were sketching this garden, perhaps as it was being built, or, the cabin itself. The garden probably was already there. Now, the sketch, including the cabin and details of things that weren't there yet, like the metal ornament or whatever it was that you talked about, she hadn't even bought that or built anything yet. So because of the time element, it is more relevant as a prophecy, and it's pretty cool. Now the coolest thing was if you had recorded yourself sketching it, then you would have time-stamped evidence. But for yourself, you know when you did it, so that's good enough. How does that information translate? For me, it's the broad sense of the multiverse, where if you zoom out and look at the entire picture of reality, even from this multiverse level, you can basically use math to bucket different activities or potential futures together. So even if reality is kind of written into the future, every universe has a certain percentage chance of something happening. So I don't think anything is set in stone, but if you look at enough universes, you could probably predict with enough computational power and information, not perfectly the future, especially not very far out, but you can look at probabilities. Probabilities are so powerful. Even in just scientific use right now, no glitches, nothing paranormal, we can predict what large percentages of people will do, even though at the individual level we can't. So if you have enough aggregated data, you could probably, if you're like a guardian angel, transmit that information to someone. Like, okay, this isn't guaranteed to happen, but if you sketch this, there's a high probability that your aunt is going to do this. And that's just a cool experience. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's a guardian angel just looking over you and wanting to give you a cool experience. Maybe that's all it is. Or maybe it is your innate ability. If it is innate ability, why doesn't it happen more often? What triggers it? That really is a deeper question. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 12 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one. I think today, for a very specific reason, it involves fish. Let's get to it. Case file number 3616, written by Tiny Chocolate 6089. The Bulb of Divinity. So I've never been a religious person, like at all. I don't believe in the God or any of the other thousands of deities humans have invented over the course of our long and sordid history. Some grand architect of the universe, nah. With that said, there's this one thing that happened years ago that I still haven't quite filed away. I was alone in bed one night, just lying there in the dark with my bedside lamp on. For whatever reason, maybe I was feeling a bit more existential and nihilistic than usual, I decided to just throw a question out into the room. I remember thinking, or maybe even whispering it, if there's actually something out there, give me a sign. The very second the thought left my head, or the words left my lips, the light bulb in my lamp made this sharp pop, and the whole room went pitch black. I just laid down there in the dark for a minute, heart racing. The filament was probably just old, right? Yep, that's it. It was a minor power surge. The bulb was reaching the end of its life cycle, and the timing just happened to line up. I know it was almost certainly a major coincidence. The odds of a light bulb blowing at the exact millisecond you ask for a sign aren't zero, after all. But the timing was so precise, so absolutely dead spot on. Well, what can I say? This is not proof of the divine, but it's something more than a coincidence. That's what my brain settles on, those two statements. I still don't believe in a higher power, but I will say I am a grain more open to weirdness than I was before this coincidence. Yeah, I mean, I always get being skeptical, and I respect that. But in certain cases like this, you just have to say, yeah, okay, this is such a major coincidence. Is it technically possible that it is just a coincidence? Like right now, I just thought, may the lights go out. Of course, I have two lights going on, like one ahead and one on the side. So that would have been remarkable if it actually, both of them popped. And I would have been, what would I have done if that actually happened? If I just thought about, may they both go out, both pop or whatever, or just turn off. If they had, and I caught that on camera. Wow, that would be cool. Is it just a coincidence? I mean, I think we all agree that it's technically possible, but that's not actually what happened. Maybe again, a case of your guardian angel. Maybe it's not God, or maybe it is God. Maybe it's a developer in the real world. Maybe it's a guardian angel assigned to you, the agent responsible. Like it's almost like a D&D master that is responsible for different people. It's not just protection, I think. There's more involved in that. They have to keep it subtle and discreet most of the time, but I think it's more than just protection. These entities that watch over us seem to do more than just watch. Case file number 3617, written by IYDTW. Patch notes for reality. There is a tree right in front of my door. And when I say tree, I don't mean some little sapling or a shrub that I just happened to overlook all my life. This thing is huge, monstrous. It's old with a thick trunk too large to hug across, established branches, height that takes decades, not a year or two, to reach. Now the serious problem. I have absolutely no memory of it ever being there. I've lived here long enough that I should have seen this thing thousands of times or tens of thousands of times. I don't even know. And I'm usually pretty observant. I actually spend a lot of time looking at the tree right next to it. There's a smaller one close by where birds are always landing, and I watch them all the time and hear them chirping even inside my room. My eyes are literally fixed on the spot constantly. If there were two massive trees standing side by side, right in my line of sight, there's no way I wouldn't have noticed a second one. But I never did until today. And I've become truly obsessed over it in the past few hours. I've never had anything this strange happen before, but there isn't a logical explanation here. It's like it just popped out of thin air, fully grown, and the world is trying to tell me it's always been there? No. Screw that. I will not be gaslit. Every time I look out the door now, reality just feels wrong. I look at it, and I get this stomach twist feeling, because I know for a fact with the collective knowledge of my entire life that that space was empty yesterday. Case file number 3618, written by CG Goblin. Scrape around the trailer. It's been over a decade, and I still haven't found anything that fits all the facts. back in the day, my second apartment was this beat-up trailer sitting on an absolute gorgeous piece of farmland. The trailer itself was, well, it was in a rough shape, let's put it that way. But the land was incredible, so I didn't mind the drafty walls or the creaks. One afternoon, I'm home alone, just hanging out in bed reading. Everything is quiet until I hear this very distinct sound. A stick dragging against the siding right outside my bedroom window. Scrape, scrape, scrape. I wasn't even scared at first. I was pretty tight with all the neighbors on the farm, so I just figured one of my buddies was outside being a deliberate pest, trying to get my attention or just messing with me. I peeked out the window, expecting to see a face grinning back, and saw nothing, just a yard. Then the sound started moving. It wasn't a random noise, it was rhythmic. I could hear it dragging along the side of the trailer, heading toward the front of the house. I actually got out of bed and followed it down the hall, peeking out every window I passed like some kind of amateur detective. I watched the empty space where the sound should have been. The dragging carried right around the outside of the kitchen, and then I heard it come up the porch steps. It sounded like it stopped dead right at my front door. Okay, I'm officially freaking out. I'm thinking, someone is definitely committed to the bit. I summoned whatever courage I had and cracked the door open only to witness nothing. No one on the porch, no stick left behind. And that's when I realized something even weirder. I heard the dragging go up the stairs, but I never heard a single footstep on the wood. I did the rounds afterwards. I asked every friend on the farm if they'd come by to prank me. Everyone said no. I checked with the neighbors to see if they saw anyone wandering around my place. They didn't. It's been 10+ years, and if this was a joke, nobody has ever copped to it. People usually suggest it was just an animal skittering around underneath the trailer, but I know what I heard. An animal under the trailer doesn't sound like a stick on the siding at eye level, and an animal under the porch doesn't stop at the front door on top of the boards. I still get the heebie-jeebies thinking about it. I hate puzzles I just can't solve. Case file number 3619, written by Charger485. Hallway of Dread. Has anyone else ever heard something that sounded genuinely evil? It happened to me when I was young. It was winter, so it was that pitch black kind of afternoon where it feels like midnight at 6 p.m. My mom and I had just gotten home from school and work. She immediately headed back out to the yard with the dog, and I went upstairs to my room to change out of my school clothes. As I was walking down the hallway, I had to pass my parents' bedroom. The door was open, but the room was blackness, oppressive, heavy, total. The second I got near it, I felt this overwhelming presence of dread. It wasn't just creepy. It felt like something was actively watching me from the shadows, and it sunk into my body. I know it was my subconscious making me feel this way because of threat detection, but damn, never ever felt this way ever since. Anyways, that's when I heard it. A god-awful, high-pitched laugh ripped through the quiet. I'm telling you, it sounded like a freaking demon. It was malicious and loud, and it came directly from their empty dark room. I just froze. There was absolutely nothing in there that could have made that sound. No one else was home, we hadn't turned on any TVs yet, and this was way before anyone had smart speakers or phones lying around. And for some reason, the only thing I could think to do was start scream-singing a TV show theme song at the top of my lungs. I was trying to drown out the now silence and distract myself while I bolted down the hall and down the stairs to find my mom. I practically collided with her as she was coming back in with the dog. She looked at me like I'd lost it and asked why I was singing so loud. Although there was an amusement in her words, she must have thought I was being a dumb kid rather than having just experienced the greatest sense of fear any human ever has. She said she could literally hear me from outside in the yard singing that tune. I tried to tell her about the laugh, but she kind of just dismissed it as me being an imaginative, weird kid. The validation didn't come until years later. My parents eventually had a college group come out to do a paranormal investigation of the house because after this happened to me, strangeness persisted for them too, even if I was mostly left alone. I wasn't even surprised that they told us their meters were going off like crazy and weird stuff started showing up in the photos they took during the sweep. Thank God my parents don't live there anymore. Still don't know what was in that bedroom, but I know it wasn't human. Case file number 3620, written by Chef Geodude Lennon. The Cloudless Car Wash. While I was driving the stretch between Lake City and Gunnison, out in Colorado, a genuinely gorgeous route, it was just massive mountain scenery and wide open highway. It was a perfectly clear day, not a single cloud in the sky, just pure blue from horizon to horizon. I was just cruising along taking in the view when out of absolutely nowhere, bam-ba-dam, a massive splash of water douses my entire windshield. It wasn't a sprinkle or a light mist, it was like someone had dropped a giant water balloon directly onto my car from a height. The Ross effect, I like to call it now. Or like a bucket of water had been dumped from an overpass, except there were no overpasses. No other cars around me, no trees hanging over the road, just me, the asphalt, and the mountains. I actually had to turn the wipers on just to see where I was going. I kept looking around trying to find an explanation. Did a bird carrying a water balloon fly over? Did some weird atmospheric pocket just collapse? I usually try to break these things down into a systems problem, but what the frick? Again, not a single damn cloud in the sky. Has anyone else ever been rained on by a cloudless sky? Because I'm still baffled. Case file number 3621, written by Letmain202, Diamond in the Dairy section. A few weeks ago, I lost a diamond off from my engagement ring. This wasn't an ordinary piece of adorning jewelry. It was my mom's diamond, and since she passed away when I was young, it was basically the most important thing I owned in my entire life. So you can hopefully imagine how emotionally pulverized I felt. It was the only real tangible connection to her I had left. I spent days searching endlessly, retracing every single step I took that day, but it was an impossible search because I had been running errands and moving around a lot. There were thousands of possible locations it could have dropped from, and even if I knew exactly where it fell off, it's a ring diamond. Decent size, but still crazy hard to spot on the ground. I gave up, painfully. 3 weeks passed. I was still mourning the loss, feeling like I'd failed my mom twice over. Then, the anniversary of my dad's burial rolled around. It was already a heavy day. I went to the kitchen to grab something, opened the refrigerator, and sat right there on the middle of the shelf next to the carton of milk and a few other things I reach for constantly, every day, was a diamond. The frick! It looked like it had been placed there for me deliberately. Mind you, that shelf is high traffic, as I said. I opened that door constantly, bought groceries, used them. I moved the milk, I rearranged things. There was zero chance that rock was sitting right there for 3 weeks without me noticing it. It just appeared, sitting right there in plain sight, on the day I was already thinking about my parents the most. And let's be perfectly clear, even if I had somehow dropped it in the fridge while distracted, which I don't think is possible, how did it survive 3 weeks of me moving groceries around? Was this my mom correcting my mistake for me? I want to believe that. Case file number 3622, written by Alex343. Not a deer, definitely not a deer. I grew up in the Adirondack Mountains, properly rural, deep woods. I was almost an adult at the time, 17 I think. My adopted brother and I were out one night hunting coyotes because the pack had been stalking our dogs for about a week and we weren't about to let anything happen to them. I was the one who came up with the idea to stake out on the roof. Coyotes have an insane sense of smell, and they're twitchy as hell, so my thought was that being up high would keep our scent from hitting the ground level. In theory, the wind would just carry our signature right over them, and we'd have a much better vantage point for a clean shot. We'd been perched up there for at least 2 hours, just waiting. That's 99% of hunting. Hurry up and wait. we heard the loudest stomping I've ever heard in my life coming from the woods. It wasn't footsteps. It sounded like something was literally plowing through the mountain. You could hear deep, wet snapping of trees being uprooted and the crash of timber. It was crazy. Even Alex Jones isn't this bombastically loud. This went on for about 2 solid minutes, moving right up the mountain slope next to my house. We just sat there, having no clue what the hell we were listening to. We tried to tell ourselves it was just a spooked deer or something, but it was such a stupid explanation, we had no conviction at all in saying it. We went back home hastily after that. The next morning, curiosity got the better of us, and we went out to find the path. Sure enough, about 40 feet into the tree line, we found it. It was a tunnel that had been carved straight through the forest. It looked like something had just scooped out a section of the woods. Trees were knocked over like toothpicks, but the part that actually gave me the chills were the branches. There were heavy limbs snapped off 20 feet up in the air. I have no idea what could have done that. My only guess was maybe a moose, but I've never seen one in the area, and I haven't heard of anyone else seeing them where I lived. And even by dino moose standards, 20 feet up is way too high for that kind of damage. I still think about that night every now and again. Looking back at that tunnel in the morning light, it still gives me the freaking creeps. Yeah, this is a really genuinely terrifying story because I have no idea what could cause this. A dino moose. And moose are really, really freaking big and also kind of violent. So not a lot of people know that about the Canadian monstrosity, you could say. They're terrifying, but they can't rip out an entire swath of forest and 20 feet high branches. There's no way they can do that. So yeah, what could? Heavy machinery? But why would they be doing that there and at night? And even heavy machinery probably wouldn't sound like that. I don't know what it could be, and I don't know if I want to know. Certainly not the coyotes. Case file number 3623, written by Chaos Agent 47. My dad, the Fishy Sorcerer. My dad was a wizard. I was out fishing with him and my aunt's boyfriend. Being a young pyro at the time, I wasn't exactly focused on the fishy prize. I had my pole propped up on some rocks with the line in the water while I was busy messing with the campfire nearby. Suddenly I heard a little noise. Plop. I look over in time to see my fishing pole slide off the rocks and vanish into the river. I was scared that my dad would be angry with me, but this man is calm as a motherfricker. He doesn't even flinch. He just looks at me and says, "Don't worry, son, we'll get it back." I'm thinking, yeah, right. That thing is at the bottom of the river or halfway across the Atlantic by now. Tell me why this man, maybe 20 minutes later, gets a hit on his own line. He starts reeling it in, and I kid you not, he actually caught the fish that took my pole. As he's pulling it in, my fishing pole is still attached to the line. He reeled in the fish and my gear in one go. I know, a biologist could probably explain the physics of the line tangling or the fish's behavior and coming back for a second pinhead experience, but as a kid, that blew my absolute mind. Wait, no, it still blows my mind. I still think about that whenever I'm near the water. My dad's calm as a motherfricker energy really peaked that day. Pure aura farming before it was even cool. Okay, this is my favorite story because I have a relationship with my dad where we used to go fishing all the time when I was growing up. As a kid, kind of early teenage years, and we didn't often catch anything. Sometimes we did. And cooking fish on the shoreline right after you catch it fresh is just the best fish you could possibly imagine. You can't even understand how good it is if you have never tried it. I never had my pole vanish like this. My dad, I think, is a wizard too in a way. But I love being reminded of a memory like this. And the story is legitimately cool. And your dad was indeed aura farming before it was even a thing. So I think a lot of dads were. It was just natural to be aura farming back then, to just be cool, stoic and steady. And that's what I want to try to be myself. Not to farm aura, but just because it's useful and practical and cool to be stoic and, well, just badass, really? Yeah. Case file number 3624, written by Golden Koifish. The Cowbell Man. 6 years old when this happened, but I remember it vividly because it was the first time I'd ever actually been sent to my room for being a little gremlin brat. My parents had reached their limit with me, so I was banished upstairs to serve hard time. Down the hallway from my room was my older sister's bedroom. She had this old cowbell that she kept in her closet, a heavy solid one that makes a ton of noise if you even slightly nudge it. I'm sitting there in my room, everyone else is downstairs, and there's no noise in the house. Then I heard it. Someone starts ringing the cowbell in my sister's room. And it wasn't just a little accidental rattle or a clink. It sounded like someone was in there, really slamming the thing, dancing with it over and over with purpose. It went on for at least 5 minutes straight in a repetitive clanging from a room that should be empty. I was absolutely paralyzed. There was no wind inside because no windows were open, and definitely no one else on the second floor but me. In my 6-year-old brain, I was convinced the Cowbell Man had finally arrived and he was coming for me next. The weirdest part is, I'm not the only one that heard it. Usually you'd think you'd just imagine something like this, but my mom remembers this day perfectly too. She heard the whole thing from downstairs, but she didn't come up because she thought it was me ringing it in an act of noisy brat-tune protest and defiance. She figured I'd grab the bell to be annoying because I was mad about being grounded, but I was nowhere near that closet. I haven't been able to explain it for nearly 30 years. To this day, I have no idea how a heavy bell in a closed closet starts slamming for 5 minutes by itself. And it never did it again. Case file number 3625, written by Zucchini. The Zucchini Prophecy. I warn you all, this is so silly, but I think about it all the time because it still cracks me up. A while back, I was just doing a quick run to the supermarket to grab a few things. Nothing fancy, just the essentials. As I'm heading toward the checkout, I see the cashier, a young guy, maybe 20-ish, who looks like a perfectly normal, capable human being. The second I saw him, I had this distinct, clear thought pop into my head. He won't know what the zucchini is. Now, I want to be clear, there was absolutely no reason for me to think this. Zucchini isn't exactly an exotic, hard-to-find vegetable where I live. It's a staple. It's been in grocery stores since before the dawn of time. It was zucchini, then the Big Bang. So there's no reason why a grown adult working in a grocery store wouldn't recognize one. But the thought was just there, sitting in a brain like a fact. At absolute worst, he might confuse it for a cucumber. I get to the register and put my items down on the counter. He starts scanning. He gets to the zucchini, picks it up, and stops. He stares at it for a second, looking genuinely puzzled, and then looks up at me and goes, what is this called again? I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing out loud right there, but also beyond the humor. How the hell did I guess this would happen? It definitely tickled me that I had just such a ridiculous specific premonition, and it turned out to be dead on. I wasn't even annoyed that I had to tell him what it was. I was just sitting there wondering how my brain managed to anticipate that one very useless piece of information from the future. Every time I buy a zucchini now, I wonder if I'll get a second glitch like this. Case file number 3626, written by Impressive Blood 3658. The Gaslighting Apartment. I'll preface by saying I'm not one to believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not super familiar with that kind of stuff in general though, because 1, I've never had an interest, and 2, sorry, no offense, but what I've seen when my social media algorithm gets weird is just people lacking critical thinking skills, not knowing how to properly research things or source reliable information, or just being plain stupid. I do believe in certain paranormal things, although I have not experienced any myself, and this apartment has never had any weird vibes. The only explanation I can think of for what I experienced is that I found them and then actually completely forgot about them, which is more terrifying to me than anything else. I have no history of memory issues, and if that is what happened, I feel like I need to see a doctor immediately, but wouldn't be taken seriously because how would I even explain it? I don't drink or do drugs. I've never blacked out before to my knowledge. I can't wrap my head around any other explanation though. Basically just want to share this to see if anyone has experienced similar things and what people might think happened. I will keep an open mind here. So with all that, thank you, let's get to it. So I was missing two unrelated things, a specific body oil and a specific charger. I literally looked everywhere for them. I hadn't taken them out of the apartment. I have a usual routine and nothing out of the ordinary had gone on. I spent hours at a time and days in total looking for them both because it's an oil that I use every day and a charger that only charges one thing that I use occasionally. I had bought two oils, used up one, and then was looking for this missing one. I thought maybe I forgot it or didn't buy two like I thought I did, but I found the receipt and did remember taking out two from the grocery bag. I deep cleaned my entire bathroom and couldn't find the bottle. I emptied the counter completely and wiped it down properly and returned a minimal amount of things to the countertop. I checked all my bags and drawers and other places it might be in my small apartment and couldn't find it. I was using a backup lotion as a replacement for a few days while I kept looking. While looking for the charger, I tidied up the area where the charger goes, moved the other cables around the surge protector power bank, vacuumed and cleaned up generally. It wasn't anywhere. I looked in all the miscellaneous spots things might end up in, and it turned into a big spring cleaning. I ended up buying another oil and another charger because I needed them and couldn't find them anywhere. I'm on a budget and don't buy things willy-nilly, and was annoyed that I had to buy what I had somehow lost. Came home from buying them and found the bottle unopened on my bathroom counter. I literally stood there frozen when I found it. It's not a big bathroom and there's not a lot of counter space, and I had emptied the counter to wipe it down properly, and it wasn't there when I did that. Then later I found the charger on the floor next to the power bank where it charges. Like, that's the first frickin' place I checked. So it's right where it usually is, and in the area I had cleaned and vacuumed and looked thoroughly around. I literally cannot explain this any other than just me not noticing, but how could I have not noticed when I spent so long looking for them? Like, the bathroom counter was empty. I emptied the counter and it wasn't there. The only logical explanation I can think of is I found them, then actually completely forgot I found them, which is freaking terrifying to me. I live alone, nobody has been in here but me. I have cameras inside to watch my cat while I'm gone that would have recorded if they saw a person enter. Neither spot is visible on the cameras though, but nobody could have gone to them without being seen. The only person I told that either of these things were missing was a woman at the store where I bought the charger, because I had lost mine. My cat doesn't play with cords, so I don't think he would have moved the charger, and definitely didn't move the bottle onto my counter. So yeah, what the freaking hell. Okay, for this story, I really hope I conveyed your frustrations. Given the punctuations you used and how you structured the story, I really felt like, okay, yeah, this is, I don't want to believe this. I'm rational, I'm skeptical, but what the hell? This is impossible. And yeah, I guess it is, right? Anything mundane can't explain this. Probably, multiverse switcheroo, which is a common thing. And these are very common glitches. DOP and items reappearing, coming back, being misplaced, duplicating, most common glitch type by far. And you just experienced the most common multiverse glitch. Welcome to the club. Now time for the jokes of the day. I can predict exactly how many pulls of a ceiling fan string is needed to turn it off. For example, the one above you needs 3. This is my superpower. Professor X gets up and pulls the string 3 times, and as she predicted, it turns off. Wow, that's impressive, Professor X tells her. But that's not really a superpower. Yeah, you're right. My real superpower is being able to heal paraplegics. Because it's Professor X and he stood up. That's actually good. First time I read this, I didn't actually get it. My landlord sent me a text saying we need to talk about how high my air conditioning bill is. I responded, come by any time. My door is always open. If a tomb is pronounced tomb and a womb is pronounced womb, why isn't a bomb pronounced boom? I mean, it fits. Tablets were replaced by scrolls, scrolls were replaced by books. Now we scroll through books on tablets. Some meta commentary there. My wife last night at a charity dinner. Oh my gosh, babe, that's my high school statistics teacher. Oh, really? What are the odds? Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Dave says thanks. Thanks.